Now, what we're going to talk about is about function modifiers. Okay? Modifiers can be used to change the behavior of functions in a very declarative way. In fact, modifiers are very powerful because they can help us to restrict access to certain functions by specifying certain permissions. The most important part also is that the modifiers are a very elegant way to write code in Solidity. So, for example, let's say we want to restrict the access to who can modify these functions. Because right now, let's say I change the address. Now I'm gonna call from this guy and I'm gonna say set data. The transaction is successful. If I put 2000, the transaction is successful. And you see, it's changing. So everyone can really come to modify this. And probably you don't want to do that. So if you want to add some permissioning to this contract, what we can do is use modifiers, which can be a very elegant way to do it. Okay? Let's start. Let's create a variable that is going to be public and we're going to call it owner. Okay? So who is going to be the owner? The owner is going to be equals to the message sender. Okay? So what it means is whoever creates the contract, whoever triggers this contract creation transaction is gonna be the owner, because when the transaction arrives, Ethereum will read the MSG sender and is going to assign to our variable called owner. Okay? And then we are going to create the modifier that we are going to call only owner. Okay? What this modifier is going to do, Solidity has a way to validate certain conditions. And when these conditions are false, it's going to throw an error. Okay? Which means the execution of the program will be fully reverted. Okay? Nothing is going to change if we throw an error. Alright? Because in Ethereum, all the transactions have to be atomic. Alright? So here we are going to include this require. So we are going to say that the message sender, the person who is sending the transaction, has to be equals to the owner of the contract, the owner that we specify here. Okay? And then we add underscore, which means that whenever this modifier is specified, the function is gonna be called. Okay? It's like a placeholder that represents the function where this modifier is applied. Actually, this function can be even before. Like if you want to run the function and then this require, you could do that. But in our case, we are doing a validation. So it's like saying, I'm gonna validate whoever is calling the function, and if this is correct, then execute the function. Okay? If not, we can specify a message and we can say invalid owner. Okay? Now let's add the modifier to our functions. and we just put it here. Only owner, and finally only owner. Okay, now our three functions are protected with the only owner modifier. Now let's test it. Let's clean here and be sure this account, the first one, is going to be the owner. Alright? So let's specify 10 and 10 transaction. And then let's check data, correct, multiplier, correct. Who is the owner? This guy. Okay? Now let's try to set computed data. Okay, it's working. It's working. We are getting 100. Let's set a multiplier. Well, let's put 20. And let's get data. Then let's say set computed data. And this data should change now. Okay, 200. Now let's set data manually, 2000. And it's correct. Okay, so multiplier 20, data 2000. Everything is okay. Now here is the nice thing. Let's change the account for the second one and let's try to modify data by calling set data. Let's say 3000, and if you can see, there is an error. The error is invalid owner. Can you see? We can see the error here decoded, but the transaction failed also. So if he tries to call set computed, it's gonna crash, set data is gonna crash, set multiplier is gonna crash. Okay? Why? Because we have the only owner modifier. And now our contract is more secure.